Yo, 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 we are here. This is not the smartest guys in the room. Good to see everybody. I see I got my show and tell from last week is still in my thumbnail picture, so I need to change that. What's up, Brian? We're talking about AI today. We're going to have Tom's Thumbs. We're going to have show and tell. We're going to decide if we like AI or if we want to ditch it. Or is it here to stay? Is it a fad? Remember when people thought the internet was a fad, Tom?
Yeah, I remember. I mean, there's like a famous clip that I see circulate every once in a while from the Today Show. It was Katie Couric and Bryant Gumbel, if I remember correctly. I mean, I grew up like the Today Show was kind of always on in the morning in my house growing up, right? And I think it was Katie Couric and Bryant Gumbel, and it was it was a clip from when I was in high school, and they're talking about the internet and this new thing called email and trying to explain how it works. And it's hilarious, like in hindsight, right? Seeing how far things have come since then. But yeah, it was them trying to explain email or trying to wrap their heads around email back in the sort of like, I think mid 90s. And it was, yeah, I mean, that was back in the time when people were like, is this going to catch on? Is this going to be a thing? Is it going to, are people going to use email instead of writing letters anymore? And, all that kind of conversation. And yeah, I mean, we can see now with the benefit of hindsight, in 2025, we can see how that all panned out. And the answer is obvious to us now. But at the time, yeah, it was a big debate.
I saw in China that everybody I think it was like third grade, they're going to start teaching AI courses that every kid in, right? So is it going to be part of the curriculum? Should it be? Just like, I don't think it's much different than searching the web. I mean, it's just getting you more information. And that's my thoughts, Tom. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I wonder for people who are sort of anti-technology or anti-technologists or kind of grip white knuckle onto their Luddite tendencies. I don't really understand what the perceived benefit would be to resisting the adoption of new technology. Right? It's sort of like, in hindsight, and it's like it's laughable to us now with the benefit of sort of distance, right? But if you look at, back in the day, there were people who were arguing, there were articles written, you can dig back in archives and newspapers. I'm sure you can find some in like the New York Times and stuff. But if you dig back in the day, there were lots of people who argued that the automobile would never take off, right? That it could not replace horses, that horses were a far better mechanism for transportation, for trucking and freight movement and work, etc., that tractors wouldn't replace horses, that automobiles wouldn't replace horses. Like there was this whole argument. In fact, some of that argument, it's really funny. I was talking about this with somebody the other day. We were talking about the infrastructure around electric vehicles, right? And the need for more charging stations in more sort of like useful places, right? And if you dig back, there were arguments made that one of the reasons the automobile would never catch on broadly was because there weren't enough gas stations, right? So like the same argument that people are making now against EVs was made 100 years ago against the automobile, right? And so I think the same arguments that people were making against email 30 years ago, people are going to make against AI now, right? And it's I think we're going to, in 20 or 30 years, we're going to look back on that and kind of with the same understanding, look back on it and go, well, that was kind of a silly argument, right? They didn't really like, you don't really think that through. You didn't really see the sort of potential of the opportunity or how things would actually play out. It was a rather kind of short-sighted viewpoint. So yeah, I mean, look, I think at the end of the day, I'm not saying every new technology is inherently good. That's not what I'm saying. But when you look at a technology like, the internet, right? Or a technology like AI that revolutionizes the way we interact with each other and the world around us. I think you have to play ball with it, right? You have to, at the very least, understand it and use it to your advantage, even if you don't love it. I'm not saying everybody should be like banging a drum, chanting about how great AI is. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying, though, is we live in a time where it's important to recognize and utilize all the tools we have at our disposal. And AI is a fantastic productivity tool. And I think a lot of people are going to, in the long term, hurt themselves because of their short-sightedness and refusal to embrace a new technology like AI, the same way people refused to embrace email, 30 years ago. So yeah, I think, is it going to replace people? No, but people who use AI as a tool to increase their productivity will replace people who don't.
That's well said, Tom. We got a comment here from our friend Brandon. Brandon says, I'm directly affected by AI, but even I know that the artist and technology will always push each other. So I'm finding ways to use it and make something I couldn't have before. I refuse to use it for work. I sell, though, like my art and designs. So he's not using it in his artwork and designs, but he is using it other places. Brandon, I hear Brandon with that, because as a publisher of books and author, I'm like petrified of seeing people use it in their books because, well, I'm a big believer in laws catching up with technology. So today you write something aided, assisted, created by AI. Tomorrow, 3 years down the road, Amazon scans for AI created, AI doctored work, and then they delete all the books or something like that. So, or they freeze your book from some sales platform because you used so much AI in it. So I am not a fan of it at all when it comes to the writing, the pure creation of your content. I'm a big believer in using it for disseminating. If I'm taking it, something I already wrote, and I'm going to create a social media post, I'm going to create a news article. Well, I already wrote this chapter, and I'm taking 2 paragraphs from the chapter and then putting it into AI, prompting it, saying, give me a news article based on these last 2 articles in the voice of Motivation Champs about this, more upbeat, make sure it ends like this. So that's what I think, Tom. Go on, and then we'll get to B Swift, Sonia, and Julie.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, like, I think, and what you're talking about there is people trying to replace themselves with AI, right? And that's where I think a lot of folks miss the boat, is they see it as, again, they see it as a human replacement. And if you think of it that way, then you're more likely to use it that way instead of using it like an assistant, right? Or a tool. So one of the best, or one of the most, I found one of the best, and I think one of the most interesting ways to describe using AI that I've heard is to think of the AI, and I'm specifically talking about sort of the large language model, generative AI like ChatGPT, right? That's just for context. That's kind of the one what I'm talking about. Is to think about that kind of AI, the way interact with it, the way you would interact with a day one intern or day one entry level employee, right? So imagine you hired someone to do administrative sort of like grunt work for you or your business, right? And that's the way you should think about the AI. So you give it very clear and precise direction through the prompts, and then you make sure that you go over, review its work, and edit it to make sure that it is in line with your brand, your business, your voice, et cetera, right? So, like, to me, one of the things that I've always struggled with is sort of like staring at the blank page, right? Like that sort of the cursor blinking on the blank page. Like, how do I get started? Sometimes I just need a thing, something, a few sentences, a paragraph, something to start with that I can then say, oh, you know what? It'll get things moving, and it'll start clicking, and I'll be like, oh, you know what? I can say this, and then I can say this. Oh, I should talk about that. And let me find a couple of articles that I can use as like to provide supporting evidence for this theory that I'm putting forward, et cetera, or not, like, or maybe I'm wrong. Let me see, like, let me do a little bit of research. And AI is great for all of those things, right? Like for getting you started, for helping you do research, for streamlining processes that otherwise take a long time. You can make them much, much faster with AI. And that's the kind of like productivity I'm looking for. So Brandon, totally hear you and appreciate the idea that like you refuse to use AI for work that you sell, right? But there's no reason why I would say like there's no reason why you can't use AI to inspire work that you sell, right? If you're saying, hey, I wonder what it would look like if we did this, and you go to one of the AI image generators and you go, hey, dot, 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 like, what if we mash these two styles together? What would that look like, right? And it spits out an image at you. Now, obviously, you're not going to turn around and just kind of sell that image as if it was your own, but it might, seeing that image, I mean, this is just how my brain works, but like seeing that image for me, I would then look at it and go, oh, that's interesting. Oh, it did this. Oh, it did that. Oh, those two things are, oh, you know what? Now I see a path forward. Whereas before I was just staring at a blank page and not going anywhere. Right. So that's one of the ways that I personally really like to use it is as sort of like an entry level assistant. If I said, hey, do me a favor, I need to write a newsletter on AI this week. Go ahead and just draft, have to start, and here are the things I want you to talk about, and here are the things I want you to focus on. Go ahead and give me a draft, 750 words, give me a draft, right? And then go from there. Don't put it out as finished work, because it's not, right? It's not meant to replace people. It's meant as a productivity tool. And that's how I think people should use it. So those are just a couple of the ways that I like to use it. And kind of, I feel that it has dramatically increased my productivity in the way that I use it, professionally. So yeah, so that's what I think. I don't know. What do you think, Dom? Should we start going around the room, see what other folks
Let's hear what
have to
people have to
say?
say. So let's go like this. Since we know it's coming, since we know it's here, good uses. How are you using it? How has it benefited you? So Swift, what do you got for us, man? Good uses. Are you using it? Where at? Where does it help ease things for you?
I have started to play with it with some ideas. But again, we can talk all day about how good it is, but like all the technology out there that has major negatives to it, I think it needs to be discussed, the downside of it. And I think there's a
All
big
right,
of a
bring it
down.
on, Swift. We're not afraid. What do you got for us? Come on.
I think there's a bigger downside than there is an upside.
All right, go on. Preach. Tell us.
No problem. We could preach all day about it can help you just creatively, but you know what? You just stopped yourself from having to be creative. No matter what we say about it, how anybody uses it, it is taking the place of the human mind from creating. Whether you use it creatively, it is taking the place of people being authentic. Now, we could say we're going to stop it at the creative line. We're not going to use anything else it tells us. But here's the bottom line. You're not going to do that to a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 20-year-old, and probably a lot of 30-year-olds are not going to stop. All we're doing is replacing human ability with what somebody else has said, because this is all programmed by humans, and it has a slant. I don't care what anybody says there, it is slanted because it is written by a human. So we could say whatever we want to, but it's going to create a bunch of dum-dums out there, just like TV did, right? A lot of people called it the dummy box. So you're watching the dummy box. Why? Because it replaced kids from being outside, from learning how to create games like Kick the Can or Johnny Run Across or Ding Dong Ditch or just fun stuff. It is preventing kids from having to use their minds. Just like phones have they become babysitters for moms that don't want to tell their kid to shut their pie hole and behave. They hand them the $1,000 phone so they could play a game on it. Now it prevents a parent from parenting, but it's the easy way out. If we keep taking the easy way out in the world, in generations, we're going to have a bunch of people that just don't know how to think. Just my 2 cents.
All right, Brian, you brought it today. We're not worried about it, man. So we appreciate all sides of this argument. This will always be a safe place for everybody. We appreciate it. So I'm going
Dom,
to.
it's not an argument. We're just having a conversation.
Yeah, right. It's just a conversation. So, Brian, in this conversation, I use Opus Clip. I'm going to take this conversation today from Opus Clip, from all of us here, and I'm going to copy and paste the link into Opus Clip. And it's going to pull out 50 conversations based on you, me, Tom, Trish, entire down there, Sonia, Julie, whatever, and break them into clips, 60 clips, 40 clips, whatever. I'm able to then add, they missed that boat. I can add to the beginning of the conversation, the end of the conversation, based on transcript. If I had to do that on my own, it would take me a week and it wouldn't be as good. So now I can take this show and have 60 clips out in 45 minutes if I really wanted to. How is that not benefiting, and how did it any way stymie my growth?
I never said there was no benefit to it. I think there are some benefits to it. As I said, I think we don't talk about the downside of technology. There are some creative benefits to it and technological benefits to it, like there are technological benefits to having a cell phone. But there's also a downside to it. And we fail to address a lot of the downside. In your example, Dom, 100% useful. Absolutely. I get it. 100% useful.
No, fair, Brian. And hey, I like to play. I played in the mud more than my kids played in the mud. And I believe my imagination, because when I was about 10 years old, I had 2 friends and lived 5 miles from town. So I was out in the woods by myself all the time. So I believe my imagination was aided by playing in the creek, whatever you want to call it. Go on, Tom.
That explains so much, knowing that you spent lots of your childhood in the woods by yourself.
That's right. That's right. Tom,
What
you got
up,
anything good to
though?
add? Go on. We're coming in tired, so you want to keep rolling, or what do you think?
No, yeah, I think let's keep rolling. I mean, look, are there potential negatives to everything? Sure. Like, there's a potential downside to getting in your car to drive somewhere, right? Like, the potential downside is you could get in an accident, you could get hurt, right? Like, that's a potential downside. There are potential downsides to literally everything. If you focus too heavily on the potential downsides, then you wouldn't do anything, right? You would end up, a shut-in, never leaving your house because you'd be afraid to do anything because there was the potential that it could go wrong. Right. So, like, while I totally understand the idea of exercising caution or taking potential downsides into account, the same way I put on a seatbelt every time I get in a car, right? Like, I take precautions. I am aware of the potential danger, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to get in my car and go somewhere, right? Like, my wife is taking our daughter to a doctor's appointment in a little bit here, right? Like, there's a risk to taking a child in the car to go to the doctor's office, but guess what? The benefits outweigh the risk. She goes to the doctor, right? So, like, that's the way I think of it, is like, look, put your seatbelt on, right? Just make sure you're wearing your seatbelt and you're taking necessary precautions, but don't let it stop you from moving forward.
Stop fighting the AI, man. Stop fighting the AI.
Yeah, we're coming, my man. Stop fighting the AI. He says, and if you got something bad to say about it, there could be poor use. Well, let people know the poor use. So Brian has a point as far as, let's talk the good, bad, and the ugly. If somebody's out there doing something dumb that's going to get them just copying people's content or something like that, well, let's learn about it. So we're going to go, since entire motivator, Dominic, I like this because we got similar names here. We're going to go AI. What's your thoughts on it? Entire, his name is
What's going on? Yeah, entree, like entrepreneur.
Entree motivator.
Motivator.
Tom loves when I mispronounce people's names. So entree motivator, I have done that to you. So give us your thoughts on AI, and then we're going to keep rolling around.
I'll try to keep it short. I know it might go on over, but as far as it's always the good and bad. It's definitely some great good and some great bad. Like Brian is saying, but the biggest thing is what we can do for ourselves, our business, our automation, all those good things. I'm a developer. I don't just play around. I can build just about any app somebody can bring me, just about. But the biggest thing is thinking of all the bad stuff or business automation is I built AIs that can do health for people that can't do stuff for themselves on autopilot, an agent that summarizes all these things and exercises based on their capability levels. And every single day they give them a blueprint and put it on a calendar. But personally, I think I have hundreds of agents. I'm now having a 3D format. I would say virtual or a video game look like, right? But for me to manage and grow all my AI employees that I think Tom was talking about, the one that it kind of intrigued me just recently. I did a video I'm about to drop soon, but it's literally AI that if I was locked up, of course I don't plan on going to jail. But I just remember this, a long time ago, I went to jail for, not pulling up to a ticket or some kind of court thing, right? That, was traffic related, kind of weird, right? But the biggest thing was now this AI, all I do is call on the phone, it has a phone number. And then, so it just says, hey, where are you? What they say you do. And then, a few more things. And then once I hang up the phone, it activates agent workflow that calls all my contacts in Google Sheets and let them know, all the details, searches the internet daily based on the Google Sheets, tracking thingamajiggy. So it does all these things to annoy the world until I get out, right? It can make outbound calls, all these other type of things to let people know that let me out of here. Yeah. But being able to have those kind of systems is definitely intriguing when I can't do for myself in certain circumstances like that, but to have an AI annoy the world until I'm free, from different forms of communication. If I got to use Hey Gen to show up as an avatar, and send a message to be like, through the Hey Gen's API and my agent system to say, hey, I don't know if you got my message last time. If I got to send an actual avatar of myself, just telling the person to come get me and get me from being locked up, it's just it's pretty crazy. And think about the other one that has avatar. You can have these show up on Zoom and stuff like that. So think about being on court and I got 50 avatars in the courtroom as people. They can be like, damn, your whole family here.
Andre, you're talking some intense stuff here. We receive it. You got a final.
But to have one man, be able to automate things that can help them in real life scenarios. It's that's just intriguing to love that kind of part of it versus the bad part.
All right. Hey, that sounds like it could be some good work, could help a lot of people. So keep it up. All right. I love it. Leave it. Tom, first, before we get to Sonia, where are we at? Where can people find us? You do that better than me. And then anytime I say it, you're like, what about this place? No, we're not there. That's not how we do it. So
yeah, buddy. All right. So obviously, as you all know, this is not the smartest guys in the room. We're streaming live all over the internet. We use Clubhouse here as the platform to bring people into the conversation, but the conversation is broadcast out. It's a live podcast, right? We do this every Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. So we're broadcasting right now across the internet on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitch. To name a few, and also obviously, as I said, here on Clubhouse. So if anybody wants to join the conversation, hop on over to Clubhouse, get into the Not the Smartest Guys in the Room house. You can join the conversation, ask a question, share some knowledge or a tip. Let us know how you're using AI, what your best practices are. Or if you're saying run away from it, don't touch it, whatever the case may be. So that's what's going on. It's an opportunity. We do this every week for everyone to get together, talk about sort of current topics in media, publishing, your area of expertise and my area of expertise in media, and then hear from other folks, hear a diversity of opinions and thoughts on the subjects, and hopefully surround ourselves with people smarter than us so that we are live up to the name of the show and not the smartest guys in the room. So that's what we got going on. And up next,
well done, Tom. Well done.
Thanks. So up next, I think we're Arita Sonia. Is she?
I didn't mean to go too high level, man. I didn't mean to go too high level.
No, it's all good. Cool, it's all good. It's all good. No, gotcha. That's all good. And yeah, just Andre, just so you know, the way
I definitely followed the house.
Hold on. just so you know, the way we do this, because we're broadcasting all over the internet, not everybody is here in Clubhouse in the conversation. Just do us a favor. If you want to add something, just flash, let us know, and then we'll come to you, so that we're not talking over each other, so people watching it elsewhere can understand what's going on. So appreciate it. Appreciate you being here. Sonia, we're coming around to you. Sonia, how are you using AI? Are you using AI? Do you love it, or do you want to leave it behind?
I use AI for certain things. Well, the biggest way I'm using it is to promote my clips from my podcast, and and then also on Buzzsprout, because I use that as my main platform for the podcast, that actually then goes and disperses it to other places. I use it as a guide, but sometimes I try to stay away from that part as much as I can, because I want to be able to write my own way. But other than that, that's the only times I've really used AI. Or you do something on Canva, right, to be creative on Canva. But that's about it. I don't really use a lot of it elsewise, though.
Cool. I appreciate that. I mean, I think that's kind of in line with what I was talking about, right? Using it sort of as a point of inspiration or to tackle mundane tasks, right? Things that you really shouldn't spend your time doing, right? Like, helping to disperse clips across different platforms, or, just drafting the initial impetus of an idea, right? Basically getting you from that blank page to something on the page that you can actually mold into your own, right? I don't think it's any different than, for example, using a piece of clay and using a pottery wheel, right? Like, I mean, you're taking a lump of clay. The only way you can make it into the shape that you're making it into is by using a pottery wheel, right? By using that tool. But it doesn't mean that whatever you make, the vase or the bowl or the plate or whatever you make on the wheel, doesn't mean that it's less valuable or a lesser creative work. It just means that you used a tool to help you get something that otherwise you wouldn't have been able to create, right? So I think those are all good uses. I appreciate that. What do you think, Tom?
I think they all sound good to me. I think I want to go to Tom's Thumbs right now before we get to Julie and Trish. What do you think about Tom's Thumbs? So, not the smartest guys in the room. Tom's Thumbs is a segment. Tom has been known to give a lot of thumbs downs. So, sometimes he gives a thumbs up. You never know. So, today I'm going to lead him to water. Tom, in 2025, what do you think about starting a podcast?
So, present day. In 2025, right? So today, do I think it's a good idea to start a podcast today? So that's not really a thumbs up or thumbs down question.
Come on, you could say starting a podcast 2020 up. Or,
all right. Fair enough. So yeah, look, I think there's a lot of people arguing right now that the podcast space is oversaturated, right? There's people arguing that there's too many podcasts, that everybody and their brother has a podcast. Every time you turn around, somebody's got a new podcast. We all know people, all of us here, everybody watching around the internet right now knows a multitude of people that have a podcast, right? Or participate in a podcast. But the truth is that actually the podcast market is a growing market. So my answer is starting a podcast in 2025 gets a thumbs up. I think it's a good idea. And it's a good idea because for two reasons. One, podcasting is still a growing market. It is not oversaturated. If it was oversaturated, you would see growth tailing off. And that's not what's happening, according to research that I've done not that long ago, because I actually was curious about this myself not that long ago. And the truth is that it's still a growing market. It's still something worth investing in. Also, most podcasts don't make it past 10 episodes. Most podcasts that get started kind of tail off and never sort of make it. I think it's 10 episodes, maybe it's 12 episodes. I forget exactly what the number is, but they don't end up sticking around, right? I'd actually be curious to see how many episodes of Not the Smartest Guys in the Room we're up to now, because we're years into this, right? But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I think a lot of people tail off. A lot of people don't have the ability to stick with it, to keep a podcast going in the long term. And so that means that it's still a growing market, because despite the fact that you see, a huge number of podcasts starting or new podcasts showing up all the time, the truth is that a lot of those podcasts don't stick around, right? So there's still space to grow. And then lastly, I would say podcasting is still one of the best ways to create value-driven content for your audience, to reach a new audience or to reach your audience in a new way. And it also means that you can create something where you own the platform, right? So you distribute it through, through say Buzzsprout, right? Because Sonia mentioned Buzzsprout. So we'll just say that. So say you use Buzzsprout to do the distribution, right? And it's on all the podcast platforms through Buzzsprout. Well, at the end of the day, you still own every single episode. There's nothing that would stop you from taking the episodes and putting them up on an RSS feed on your own website, right? There's nothing that would stop you from taking that IP and using it down the line in a multitude of other ways. You own the IP. You own the platform. The means of distribution is a different beast altogether, but you own the content, right? Whereas if you create posts on social media or whatever, if your account gets banned, all of that content goes away, right? All of that just sort of disappears if you haven't been downloading it as you've been posting or whatever, right? Archiving it, etc. Whereas a podcast, you own the IP from start to finish. So yeah, so I think it's a great way to reach your audience and build new audience around your business. I think podcasts are a great way to communicate with your community, to add value to your community. And I think there's a lot of opportunity in podcasting because it's still a growing market. So starting at podcast in 2025, you get a thumbs up from me.
Wow, there you go, Tom. Positive vibes, thumbs up for Tom. Well thought out, well said. I agree with you, man. And I find myself listening to more and more and finding it easier. Here's where I land on it. It is getting easier for me to listen to them, which is like I get in the car, I turn on the radio. Now I can almost get in the car and just as easily, I got to push an extra button sometimes, but I can just as easily listen to the podcast when I'm running, my bike, whatever it is. And for me, that ease of use is, I like it. And so I'm all in. I agree, Tom. Love it. We are talking AI. Love it or leave it. Best practices. Tom's thumbs was, what do you think about starting a podcast in 2025? Julie, thumbs up, thumbs down. She's giving a thumbs down because she's red, I think. Trish smiled or laughed while you were talking, so I wonder what she has to say about that. So since Julie's on the phone, Trish, we're coming to you. You can give your thoughts on Tom's thumbs or best practices on AI. Hold on. Julie, Brian, hold on. We're going to Trish. What do you got, Trish? She's gone. Okay, back to Julie. Are you on the phone? Are you there? I'm all over the place, Tom. Okay, Trish, what do you got for us?
Hi, I'm Trish. I'm in Spot. Thanks for letting me be on your podcast. What I laughed about was I don't agree with that, and I'm not gonna get too off into it.
That's all right. Come on.
No, I'm just not gonna get too off into it. But I do agree with you on it is flexible and more, like you said, you can just pop in a cord or pop in a bug ear and just listen to it and stuff. But yeah, I'm not down. I'm not. What I can say, I'm not going to take that lane on trying to start a podcast in my future. But besides the AI, I suggest with like writing letters and documentations and like they said, with small things that you need to get done. It's a great tool. But like you said, if you're doing like writing a book or, some real intellectual property, I wouldn't suggest putting it off into the AI because you have to remember that also belongs to somebody else. Also, that you're putting your thoughts or your words off into. So it's pros and cons to everything that you do in life. You just gotta observe and get your feet wet a little bit. Don't be scared to do it, but don't put your life off into nothing. You got to hold some things, back in life. You can't put it all out there into the universe and then you don't have nothing. They done sucked you out of all your energy. So it's pros and cons to everything. It's good on if you can't get a 500-word essay done, it'll help you get that done. Or if you can't get the bio or, a contract letter or a business proposal done with it, then it's good for that type of stuff. But otherwise, don't do it, because you're selling your soul and giving it away. But again, my name is Trish. I'm the business owner of Paris Parties and Spa, where we empire our generation one style at a time. You can find me on all social media as Paris Parties and Spa. Thanks for the opportunity on the stage. I'll turn it back over to you guys.
Hey, Trish, thank you. And we don't want anybody selling their soul. So I'm going to check out Trish. We always want anybody that is in this room to try to connect with everybody here. So we appreciate you. Okay, AI, love it or leave it, and best practices. Julie, starting the podcast came up. That's something you know about as well. So what do you got, Julie?
Well, first of all, can I say, hey, Alf is in the house.
That's right. Alf's here. We're coming to Alf now.
Don't we, Tom?
Yeah, I'm glad Alf's back.
Get with it, Julie. What do you got? Come on. What do you got?
Well, there was a reason why I said Alf's in the house, because he's awesome. But second of all, what I did was, when this came up, I went to ChatGPT and asked, should I love it or leave it? I went to ask ChatGPT the question, and it gave me a great feedback. And the problem is with AI is that I am getting stupid on some sort of level. Like, honestly, and I talked to Dom about this. I'm like, oh, I just did this. You can tell when people do it in ChatGPT, right? It's clear and convincing. However, it's opening up an avenue for me when I choose to be smart in terms of writing and content, that people will recognize that. So we have that advantage. Now, I never would use it to write a book. I do use it for a lot of different things. ChatGPT gives me some crazy cool ideas. However, I do see my brain kind of softening. It's so weird. Like, over the past year, how I've used it, instead of doing the research, instead of my critical thinking, problem solving, and memory issues, I feel like I am losing that. I'm seeing a dependency that I never had it. And I signed up for ChatGPT, like the upgraded version, which it worried me a little bit. So should we be worried? Probably, but there is this opportunity for us who do have a brain to rise above the masses, if you will. So hopefully that works, and podcasting rules the world. And Dom, remember, we have an interview today with Seth Green. Okay, bye.
All right, Seth Green, and we will chat to him today. I'm excited about it. Thank you, Julie. Appreciate your thoughts. You had some of the same thoughts that Brian Swift shared, that we should be cautious of it as well. Yeah.
I wanted to poke on Brian Swift because it's also, I don't dismiss the evolution of technology. You have to embrace it. You see your kids, how different they're living their lives as opposed to how Dom lived his life, just roaming the woods by himself. So we have to embrace it, but use it correctly. But there is opportunity to rise above the chatter and above all the stuff that's going on.
Hey, those woods, my woods had trees. They had a creek. I used to go back to this creek and find old glass bottles that were blue and stuff like that. I lost one of my favorite G.I. Joe back there, man, Rakondo. He was the coolest looking.
You know, your co-host here sounds like a serial killer.
The woods are all good.
That's right, Brian. You know. Okay, let's go on. Hey, I love it or leave it. Alf, what do you got for us today? There you go, my man.
Hello. How's everybody? Hope everybody's doing
We're good, man. Glad you stopped back again. So the subject today, we're talking about AI, good practices, bad practices. So if you got a good practice, give it to us. If you don't, and you say, I hate this and I never want to see it again, give us that. What do you got, my man?
Right. I'd say that there's an AI system called Napkin, which is really cool. It's kind of a mind mapping system for AI. I'm loving that. And there's something called browser use, which lets AI agents take over your browser and automate the browser functions. You'll also see GenSpark doing some cool stuff as well. So those are my contributions for the day.
All right, right on. Alf, tell me what it means to take over somebody's browser. I don't even understand what that means.
Oh, okay. So you know how you can click the buttons in your browser and you can make the choices and you can drive those interactions. Well, you can tell AI what you want to accomplish, and then the AI will go about doing it.
Very interesting. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. So it's called browser use. I'll put them all in the chat.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Go on.
Yeah, cool. So I appreciate that, Alf. It's some interesting and varied uses for AI. So appreciate that. Again, great way to kind of streamline and automate tasks for sure. It's a great tool for that. But before we move on, before we get to Husan, I want to make sure that we get to your show and tell this week, Dom. So why don't you go ahead and show us and tell us about something?
Okay, Tom, I appreciate you. Well, today's show and tell is going to be a carryover from last week's Tom's Thumb. So somebody's going to have to go back and listen to last week. So last week, Tom's Thumbs, I asked Tom his thoughts on Easter egg dyeing, and he wasn't so into Easter egg dyeing. I love Easter egg dyeing, and I mentioned an Easter egg that comes out every year at my house. This is something, I got my daughter's 16, my son's 19, maybe past traditional egg dyeing years. Don't you tell me they are. But every year we still dye eggs. So this year, the egg I dyed was once again, well, I dyed a few, but once again was Mr. Pants. This is a guy, for some reason, I decided he's yellow and blue, wears blue pants. He always looks the same. He's got similar hair. Everybody in my family loves when Mr. Pants comes out. And then Tom had the audacity to say, and I'm going to do this on the air, that some people don't eat their Easter eggs, and he says they waste the food. So right on air, I'm going to crack it. I'm going to crack it during the show and tell here. And you could go on, Tom, but show and tell was Mr. Pants. And you see now Mr. Pants is getting his face ripped off. And I'm going to enjoy a boiled egg.
I mean, honestly, my favorite part of that is you ripping his face off. But yeah, no, hey, look, I don't think I'm wrong. I think a lot of people don't eat their Easter eggs. And I think that is a waste. I mean, in this economy, who can afford to waste eggs like that, right? They're like, what are they, $14 a dozen now? But there's down the street in our neighborhood, there's somebody that has a bunch of chickens, and they sell eggs from their chickens at the end of their driveway, and they doubled their price for their eggs, like to match the cost of eggs in the supermarket. Egg prices are going up all over the shop. So I appreciate you eating the eggs. We actually ate eggs for dinner on Monday. So yeah, and I appreciate the Frank's Red Hot. It's good stuff.
You cannot eat an Easter egg. You cannot eat a boil. I would have pepper, but in my office, I didn't bring the pepper down today. Just Mr. Pants, the Red Hot. And now I'm going to
I want to thank you for confirming my prediction that most people would be cracking their eggs the day after this year.
Well, there you go, Alf. I'm eating it right now as Tom speaks.
All right.
Okay, Tom, let's roll on here.
Yep. Here we go. All right. So we're coming around the room. We're going to go to Husan, and then we're going to get things wrapped up here as we close out the hour. So Husan, we're talking AI. Do you love it? Do you want to leave it behind? And what are some best practices you have that you can share with everybody here?
Love it or leave it. Such a challenging question. In many ways, I love it. It is a fantastic tool. It has helped accelerate some of my processes. So for that, I'm deeply grateful for it. But if I had to stand on the side and get off of this fence, I would actually stand on the side of leave it. This technology is so wide open. I think we're going to fall into the same problems we had with social media. The technology is great, but we're not thinking about the unintended consequences and the unconsidered implications of this, especially on our young people. AI is now replacing human interaction as a relationship bot. It's replacing therapists as a counselor. It is replacing a lot of those roles that we used to assume were exclusive to the human experience. And I'm not sure that we're considering those implications. So for me, I think that artificial intelligence, especially in the hands of our young people, is ultimately going to increase the gap between, as was mentioned by one of the previous speakers, maybe Chish or Trish, those who use it and use it well, they will continue to accelerate, continue to get more power. But those who just use it for entertainment purposes will continue to allow their brain to atrophy. They'll become more and more dependent on it to get answers rather than thinking through and solving problems themselves. We have this, I'll close with this. We have this illusion that it's helping to, as I mentioned, helping to accelerate our processes. But anybody who has a sourdough starter knows that the process takes time. Time doesn't change. Our experience of that time changes. And what that ultimately does is increase our anxiety and increase our sense of worry about the world that is. And I think sometimes it's just better for us to stop and smell the roses. So unless we put an age limit on it and say you can access it when you reach a certain level of mental development, perhaps it's better that we just put it on pause, if not leave it alone. Thanks for letting me share. I yield back.
Thanks, Husan. Yeah, I really appreciate that perspective. I think it's a really valuable one. As you said, as a tool, it's fantastic. But I agree with you. I do think that we need to pay attention to unintended consequences, right? And again, like in the example that I was talking about before, when I was talking about that there are risks associated with just about everything that we do on a daily basis, including one of the most dangerous things that a lot of us do on a regular basis is getting a car to go somewhere, right? So if you're willing to get in a car and go somewhere, you're willing to accept some level of risk, right? But you mitigate those risks by using safety features like seatbelts and having a car that has airbags, right? And how do we end up with those safety features? We end up with those safety features through the application of regulation, right? And people drag their feet. They get really upset about regulation because they think it's too restrictive. I mean, I remember I've seen this clip kind of floating around. I've seen it on social media. There's this clip floating around. They were interviewing people. I think it was folks in a kind of rural area based on the accents. I'm not sure where in the US, somewhere in the kind of southern Midwest area of the US, I think, based on the accents in the video. But there's people talking about being upset when they were passing drunk driving laws in the late 70s, early 80s, and arguing like, hey, look, who are you to tell us that we can't enjoy a beer on the drive home from work on a Friday, or, after a long day working outside, we can't have a beer on the drive home, right? Literally, they're advocating for drinking while driving, right? And it seems like kind of an insane thing to argue for, the same way people argue for unfettered practices and unfettered platforms like social media platforms, like artificial intelligence platforms. And the truth is that, as is the case in many things, without putting any guardrails up, without putting any restrictions on things, you end up with the worst possible version. If you don't steer it in a good direction, it's going to go off a cliff. And that's just the way things work, generally speaking, right? You have to push things in the direction you want them to go. And the way to push social media networks, the way to push AI and generative AI and the way it's used and who's able to use it and what you're able to use it for is through regulation. So I think, Husan, that was a really good, cogent argument for putting regulation, putting some guardrails up, and making people wear seatbelts when they use generative AI, and making sure in the same way that we have broadcast standards for television, where you see platforms like YouTube has YouTube Kids, where you can restrict what people can see. You can put parental controls on. I think we should have similar guardrails around independent sites on the internet, not the internet at large, right? But websites and businesses that operate on the internet definitely should have some level of accountability and regulation, so that they're not allowed to do whatever they feel like doing to derive the most profit possible in the shortest amount of time, right? Because that's the subtext in any for-profit business is they're going to do whatever they can to generate the most profit as quickly as possible, because that's what businesses do, right? That's what businesses are designed to do. And so without some level of regulation and some guardrails, they're going to do it any way they can. And often you're going to end up in a situation where they're going to sacrifice people to do it, right? And the well-being of their customers to do it. I think the story breaking a number of years ago, where they had internal discussions at Meta about the impact on teenage girls that they were seeing on Instagram and how it was negatively impacting, and they were actually seeing suicide rates go up when they were fed certain kinds of content and they did nothing about it. Like, that's what you end up with when you don't regulate businesses like this. So yeah, I think that was a good argument. Thank you for pushing us in that direction. What do you think, Dom?
I'm glad we're having this conversation. And one of the things that I'm thinking about it is I consider it like the Wild West right now. Like, there was a gold rush in the Wild West. There was good to come from going west. But at the same time, there was cowboys robbing trains, people doing all kinds of crazy things, stealing cattle and stuff. It was lawless. So we learned that a lawless land wasn't great. I think we can all agree that deep fakes aren't great. Deep fake this is ridiculous. Like, we can't have it. So just as fast as it's growing to the good, like, wow, we can use this to find things in the medical industry. We can use this to speed up these things, speed up efficiency here, here, and here. Well, at the same time, there are people using it for bad. So when that comes, or if the bad guys are sometimes ahead of the curve, well, then we got to figure it out so that those kind of things don't happen. My dad was telling me what a great singer Barron Trump was, because he sees him on the internet singing on the X Factor or whatever, like, because he's looking at deep fakes. Here's a guy 80 years old that he doesn't understand what these fakes are, and that people can put other people's voices on stuff, and how then all of a sudden they're going to be calling bill collecting. They're going to be calling our grandmothers, asking them to, in our voices and things like that, asking for money. There's a lot of stuff that needs regulated or figured out, but there's a lot of gold to be mined as well. So don't be afraid of it, but proceed with caution is where I stand on it. Tom, it is that time of day on Not the Smartest Guys in the Room where you wrap us up. So we've been a few places today, and now you need to put a tidy bow on it.
Thanks. No pressure. Yeah, we've been a little bit all over today, but I think, in a good way. It's been a stimulating conversation. I think we've ended up in a good place. I kicked it off very optimistic. I still am very optimistic about AI and the opportunity that it opens up to us. But I do agree with what Alf posted in the chat and with what Husan said earlier, that we should be cautious about how we use it. We should be conscientious about how we use AI. And when we live in a world that is tantamount to the sort of a technological frontier like the Wild West, right? Like the times during the gold rush, we have to be careful to make sure that we are using these tools ethically and responsibly, right? There are going to be people that don't, and there's nothing that individually we can do about that. But the thing that we can do individually is we can make sure that we use these platforms ethically and responsibly, that we mitigate the risks associated with using these platforms, the risks to, or the issues with labor exploitation, with equity issues that come up through the use of generative AI and access to generative AI, the environmental costs, which Alf mentioned, which I think is a good point as well. The sort of it is not carbon neutral, right? AI is very data processing heavy, memory heavy, and it takes a lot of electricity, which has an environmental impact. There are environmental impacts to bear in mind as well. So yeah, I think it's incumbent upon all of us as the users of this technology in its sort of frontier days to be conscientious, to be careful, and to be good stewards of this new technology as we move it forward. So that's where I land on it. I don't think we should leave it or try to pretend like it doesn't exist or bury our heads in the sand. AI is not going away. I can't say it any more plainly than that. AI is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. So I think the way forward, the path forward, the only way forward is to use it as ethically and as conscientiously and as carefully and as honestly as we can, right? There's nothing wrong with letting people know that you're using it for things, right? I use it all the time to help draft articles, social media posts, et cetera, to do research, right? I use it for all kinds of things, but I treat it, like I said earlier, I treat it like an entry level, assistant or employee, where I give it very clear, precise instructions. And then I make sure that I double check all of its work. And often I use its work only as a sort of jumping off point and not as the final product. And I would encourage everyone else to do the same. So that's all I got for today. I hit right on the hour, just as I said that sentence. So it is now time to go. Thank you all for joining us once again for another episode of Not the Smartest Guys in the Room. We appreciate you. We love all of you. You guys are the reason why we do this every week, have been doing it every week for years now. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part of this community and this podcast. We couldn't and wouldn't do it without you. We love you. We appreciate you. We thank you. We will see you guys next Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, once again, for Not the Smartest Guys in the Room. Until then, have a great rest of your week and a great weekend. We love you. We appreciate you. Thanks. Bye-bye.